Most people look at today's prices and laugh at the idea that owning a few thousand XRP could ever matter. They scroll past the charts, they see the skepticism online, and they convince themselves they still have time. But they're forgetting one thing about markets. Time never waits. There was a moment when one Bitcoin cost less than a cup of coffee, when a few $100s could have bought a lifetime of freedom. Everyone had access, but only a few believed. Now that same story is quietly repeating. And this time the number isn't one Bitcoin, it's 5,000 XRP. If you understand what's unfolding, that amount may soon become the new dream. Not a fantasy of overnight wealth, but a real attainable position that separates those who hesitated from those who acted while it was still possible. Welcome to Crypto Equation, where we decode the signals others miss and show how timing, patience, and conviction can change everything. To understand why 5,000 XRP could matter, you have to think beyond today's noise. This isn't about chasing candles on a chart. It's about owning a small stake in an evolving system that's rebuilding the rails of global money. Ripple has spent more than a decade connecting banks, payment companies, and regulators to a technology that settles value as fast as information moves. The lawsuits, the delays, the skepticism, all of that was part of the build-out stage. Now the pieces are aligning. ISO 2022 is becoming the global standard. Central banks are testing digital currencies. Corporations are tokenizing assets worth trillions. And right in the middle of that transition sits the XRP ledger, fast, compliant, and already operational. 5,000 XRP may not sound like much now, but imagine owning 5,000 units of an asset that powers settlement for governments and institutions worldwide. That's not a lottery ticket. That's a foothold in the new financial infrastructure. Here's the psychology behind it. In every market cycle, there's a level of ownership that becomes a symbol. In the early Bitcoin days, it was own one full coin. When Ethereum was under $10, holding 1,000 ETH felt like a fantasy until it wasn't. Now XRP is reaching its own symbolic threshold, and the number that keeps showing up in conversations among long-term believers is 5,000. Why that number? Because it's achievable for an ordinary person, but scarce enough to matter once the market matures. It represents belief with skin in the game, a position large enough to feel, but small enough that you can still take it before the crowd wakes up. Let's be honest. Holding any crypto asset through years of uncertainty takes discipline. There are easier trades, flashier coins, louder communities, but conviction has always been the rarest currency. When you choose to own and hold 5,000 XRP, you're not betting on a rumor, you're betting on utility, on technology that major institutions are already testing quietly behind closed doors. The people who win in revolutions are never the ones chasing headlines. They're the ones accumulating when nobody else cares. Every XRP you buy today is a small claim on a network that could soon move the same value the internet moves in data every second. Here's what most retail investors miss. Adoption doesn't announce itself. By the time CNBC runs the headline, banks now using RippleNet, the easy accumulation window will have closed. The liquidity will be deeper, but the multiples will be smaller. That's why timing is everything. The dream isn't about predicting a price. It's about positioning before recognition arrives. Imagine a future where XRP quietly becomes the standard bridge for cross-border payments and tokenized assets. Every transaction settled through that system would require liquidity, and that liquidity must come from somewhere. The holders providing it will be rewarded first. 5,000 XRP might seem tiny in the macro picture, but in a network handling trillions, even small allocations can carry outsized weight. There's another layer to this story, the emotional cycle. Every bull run creates three kinds of people: the doubters, the dreamers, and the doers. The doubters dismiss the opportunity until it's too late. The dreamers talk about what could happen, but never act. The doers quietly build positions, learn, and wait. Only one group ends up rewriting their story. Owning 5,000 XRP isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration of mindset. It says you understand that the system is changing whether anyone believes it or not. It says you're willing to think long-term in a world obsessed with short-term noise. Now zoom out for a second. The global economy is already running digital behind the scenes. Swift transfers settle in code. Central banks communicate using standardized messages. What's missing is instant settlement, the ability to move value at the same speed as those messages. That's the gap Ripple built XRP to fill. When you hold 5,000 XRP, you're effectively holding a piece of that bridge. You're not competing with banks, you're aligning with the same infrastructure they'll depend on. That's what makes this story so different from meme coin speculation. XRP isn't trying to reinvent money. it's making money move smarter. There's a quiet shift happening right now that few are paying attention to. The narrative around XRP has changed from controversial to crucial. The regulatory fog has lifted, the technology is maturing, the use cases are multiplying. And as that happens, what once felt like a dream number, 5,000 XRP, starts to look smaller by the day. Because when the masses finally understand what this network can do, ownership will no longer be measured in thousands. It will be measured in fragments. That's how every revolution in value transfer begins. First ignored, then ridiculed, then adopted. If you've ever wondered what it felt like to be early to the internet, this is it. A small, affordable stake today could represent an anchor position in the infrastructure of global liquidity tomorrow. So what's actually changing that makes this so real right now? Look at the numbers. RippleNet is expanding in corridors across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Remittance firms are cutting settlement costs by more than half using Ripple's rails. And central banks are piloting digital currencies that need exactly the kind of bridge asset XRP provides. Every new connection adds liquidity pressure. Every new pilot reduces uncertainty. Every step forward closes the door a little further for those still waiting for a perfect entry. This is why 5,000 XRP has become the new dream. It's still within reach, but it won't stay that way forever. When the narrative flips from possibility to inevitability, accumulation becomes competition. Think about what happens when utility meets scarcity. XRP's supply is capped. More than half is already in circulation. As adoption grows, institutional players will hold large balances for operational liquidity. That leaves less float for the public. In markets like that, ownership becomes prestige. 5,000 XRP could one day represent the same psychological milestone that 1 Bitcoin used to, proof that you understood before it was mainstream. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. It's seeing value where others see volatility. The emotional challenge is patience. It's easy to believe when prices rise. It's harder when they drift sideways. But sideways markets are where conviction compounds. While others chase hype, you learn, accumulate, and hold. When the next liquidity wave arrives, you're not scrambling to catch it. You're already positioned. The people who treat XRP like a quick trade will likely sell it back to those who understand its purpose. History always rewards patience over panic. Let's talk about that purpose again, because it's bigger than speculation. Ripple's vision has never been to create a meme coin. It's to modernize the financial infrastructure of the planet. That means banks, payment providers, governments, all connected through one neutral ledger that speaks a universal financial language. That language is ISO 2022, and XRP was fluent in it before most institutions even started learning. The world doesn't realize how close it is to full interoperability. Once those connections click, settlement speed goes from days to seconds. When that happens, the demand for bridge liquidity will surge in a way few models can capture. Owning 5,000 XRP before that surge isn't luck, it's foresight. Picture the next few years. A major central bank announces its digital currency pilot has gone live. Regional banks join RippleNet to clear international payments instantly. Corporate treasuries adopt on-demand liquidity to free up capital. Each of those steps increases throughput on the XRP ledger. Each one validates the network's design. At some point, price begins to mirror function, and the investors who quietly built positions while everyone else debated end up holding the most valuable commodity of all, time invested early. That's the real dream behind 5,000 XRP. Not the number, but the timing. If you're listening to this and thinking, I wish I'd started earlier, realize that thought never goes away. Even those who bought Bitcoin at a few dollars felt late. Even those who mined Ethereum in 2016 thought the big gains were over. Feeling late is part of being early. The difference is what you do about it. You can scroll past this opportunity like so many did a decade ago, or you can recognize the pattern. The infrastructure is being built. The rails are almost finished. And the asset designed to power them is still priced like a rumor. The truth is, 5,000 XRP isn't about chasing wealth. It's about securing a position in the next financial era. It's about deciding that you'd rather participate in change than watch it happen from the sidelines. Because whether or not XRP reaches any specific price, its adoption curve is moving one way, forward. And that means the days of easy accumulation are numbered. One day soon, people will look back and say, remember when you could buy thousands of XRP for the price of a phone? And those who acted will quietly smile, knowing they didn't wait for permission. So here's the takeaway. Dreams aren't built on predictions. They're built on preparation. Owning 5,000 XRP today isn't about guessing the top. It's about recognizing that we're still in the foundation phase. The next phase belongs to those who already laid their bricks. If you understand that, you don't need anyone else's validation. You know that when technology, regulation, and necessity align, change happens faster than anyone expects. And when that change arrives, the people who believed early will no longer be called dreamers. They'll be called prepared. If this perspective helped you see the bigger picture, subscribe to Crypto Equation, where we translate crypto, finance, and technology into clear insights for the next generation of investors. Comment below, how close do you think we are to that turning point for XRP? And what does your personal dream number look like? Whatever your answer, remember, time moves only in one direction, and the window of early opportunity always looks obvious after it closes. This is Crypto Equation, and I'll see you in the next one.